Hello, you absolute legends. It's once again Alfred with you today, and we are going to speak about the GraphQL today. So, we are the React single page application theme, and we want to create our own frontend, but it always requires to communicate with a backend. So how can we do it? Well, there is a GraphQL for it. But before we start diving into it, so before we start creating our own resolvers on the backend and then connecting them, let's first speak about what is the GraphQL itself. So, the GraphQL itself is the option of implementing the API. So the GraphQL is an API, but it is smarter than usual API because first of all, you can ask what you want and it will give you what you want. So the ability to query, ability to send query. So in comparison with the REST API, where you just send the request to some URL and it gives you some information in return, the GraphQL works like this. You ask for specific information and it gives you just the information you asked. So as the result of this ability to send query, the GraphQL also has much efficient data communication, which means that it has the smaller payloads. So smaller payload. And finally, what GraphQL gives the developers is the ease of use, because I can open one simple application and browse whole schema and understand where and what data I can receive. So let's add the, I would say, simplified learning curve, or
I'll just quickly go through the. Yeah, maybe any questions so far? Super. So then you can see the presentation, right?
So that covers the GraphQL itself. And how is it implemented? Well, GraphQL works in terms of fields. So, for example, you ask for product, which has some field ID, etc. This can be nested. And each field can be handled by someone. For example, it can be handled by resolvers. And in Magento, you declare a resolver to a field using this notation. So you say an ID is resolved by, and here you add your class name. So here goes the Magento, or your vendor name, slash the module name, slash blah blah blah. So here's how you do it in Magento. Pretty simple. And let's first check how it works overall. So let's make our first GraphQL request. I will remove this part and let's switch to the computer. So back to the computer now. Let's exit and open our own Schema Explorer. You can watch and find how you can install the same tool on your machine by following this link. So now let's open the storage, and we can see that HTTPS GraphQL is being opened. So what can we do here? We can either send the query, or we can send the mutation. Let's first send the query. The difference is query is for data retrieval, mutation is for data setting. So the query, we will ask for example for the store config, which we just had asked for. And here we, for example, don't know what we want to ask. So let's investigate. I told you that GraphQL is simple because you can find what you need in the schema. And here are we doing it. So we are looking for store config. Let's see what it allows us to take. Well, pretty much a lot of things. Let's assume we want to render the logo type. So we will ask for logo alt, logo width, and logo height. Amazing. Looks like that's it. Let's close and make the first request. And boom, we got the response. Just fills what we asked. It's pretty simple, and I believe this is the best way to communicate with the server. So we implemented this API in our application. So we are speaking with Magento using GraphQL and GraphQL only. There are no API, REST API requests, just GraphQL. Well, let's take a look how this is implemented in Magento. So to do it, we need to open our application, our Magento, with the PHP Storm or any other editor you prefer. I will be using PHP Storm because it's the most common editor. So I will be opening the ScandiPWA base, and from here we might need some time to index. We'll be back when my indexing will be over. So my indexers are over, and now we can see what we can do. So first, let's understand where is the store config coming from. So let's see, will it be declared in the schema, in the docs? Well, it's not said where the declaration is. So to find out where the GraphQL resolver is declared, you need to open the search, you need to select the file mask to star.graphqls, and you need to look for your store config. And you need to choose the directory where you will be looking. And in our case, this will be my project, ScandiPWA base. So, as you can see, there are multiple places where store config is declared. Some in module. Oh, sorry. Oh.
Absolutely, yes, yes.
As you may see, some of them are declared in Magento modules, some of them are declared in ScandiPWA. We were looking for a logo type, so let's see where it can land us. Not here. Here. The header logo src, the logo, it's here. It's in module theme GraphQL. Well, cool. Now we know and how it's done. We have some schema which declares us the fields, and then it kind of works from it. Let's try creating our own module to understand how hard it is. For module creation, we will be using app code directory, which we will need to create. And we will use the Magento generator to generate a module. So we will be doing a very simple example of taking the server time from the server. But in your real coding life, you might be using something more complicated. But we will just be returning server time, and we'll make the server time endpoint. So the vendor name is ScandiPWA, the module name is server time. That's pretty much all what we need. So let's save and download it. We will just download it here. Oops, sorry. Let's unzip the files. Well, the folder seems to be empty. Why is that? Let's press generate. And let's save and download the module once again. Yeah, here it is. Let's extract it to our home directory, my project ScandiPWA, so to the project base src folder. Let's make it larger so it will be easy to find out. Let's select the src application folder, and here we need to create a new folder called code. And here inside of this code we can now extract our zip archive. So the code has been created, ScandiPWA server time, and here we go. So we have the etc with ScandiPWA server time module of version 1. Amazing. Some composer, license, readme to fill in. Very cool. Very good. And the registration. The README, Composer, JSON, and license can be handled on your own. We will only be interested in following things. First, we want to define a GraphQL schema. Well, to do it, you need here to create a new directory, or you can simply create a new file with .graphqls extension. Let me showcase you that. Remember, we were looking for store config recently. We were looking in for store config, and here is how the GraphQL file was always named, the schema.graphqls. So we need to replicate it. We'll create a new file and call it schema.graphqls. Amazing. So here we need to write our own field, but first we need to decide what it will extend, like what it will be a part of. The server time is a simple getter, so it's a value we want to get from the server. It's not a thing we want to put on the server, just get it. So this means we will be working with a query. So we define a type query, and inside of it, we might want to have the server time field. Server time. Cool. Let's use the camel case. Let's use the underscores for dividing the words. It will be a little bit easier. It will fit the overall schema style. So the server time should have some type. Let's say the server time could be a string. Nice, but it won't work just like this. Let's try, of course, but it shouldn't work. At least we should see the schema update, but we will receive no answer to our request. The server time will be null. Let's check it out. So we need to get into our application container, so it's in-app command bash. And here we need to run Magento setup upgrade. So we'll upgrade the modules. When it will be ready, we'll continue by checking out the schema in our favorite GraphQL. Let's check if we have our module installed. So if we do Magento, oh wait, it was here already. It should be here already. We can find it like this.
I can share it with you after the meeting.
So here it is, the ScandiPWA server time. Amazing. So we know that the module has been installed. Let's check the schema out. Well, let's look for server time, and let's make sure we are up to date. So let's sync this. Looks like it's fetching something, and when it's done, we should be able to see the server time appearing here. Not now, not right away. Because we are working with it, let's just try to request it. Server time. If it will throw us an error, this means that we did something wrong. But if it returns us null, everything is great. Notice, it definitely works, it's just the GraphQL schema not being updated here, sync with this application. Because if we request this, we'll get the error, but if we request the server time, which we declared here, we will get no error. So now it's time to declare the resolver, so for our server time. So in order to do it, we will create our new directory called model. And in this directory, we will create a folder called resolver. So it will be model, resolver, and underneath here, we will create a file called servertime.php. So this should be a class, but it should inherit from the resolver interface. Let's find out what interface did our colleagues used. So for example, here, Magento model. Let's see what was the store config resolver. Amazing. Let's copy this and let's search for a file, for a class, I'm sorry. Boom. Oops. Boom. So open this up and we can see that it's resolver interface. Very interesting. Let's use the same declaration. So we'll define this. We'll remove this part for now. What we can do is we should add the namespace for sure. So our case namespace will be ScandiPWA. Then it should have, oops, something is wrong. Let's get the namespace from here. ScandiPWA server time. ScandiPWA server time is our namespace. Model resolver, just like this. Class should be server time, and it should implement the interface, resolver interface to be more precise. Cool, let's try this. Implements resolver interface. Amazing. Now we need to implement the methods, and here we are implementing them. Looks like this style is a little bit off. Let's fix the styles so it looks beautiful, at least in our opinion. Sorry. Let's just copy this style and we can reuse it pretty much. So here it is. Now we have our own server time, which has some resolver. Let's try return some value out of it, like 1 to 3. Very interesting. We also need to, but it won't work right away because we still need to connect our schema with our resolver. In order to do it, we need to declare the @resolver field. Let's see how it was done here. It's done @resolver, then it provides the class. So we do it in the same way, the resolver, and here we will provide the namespace. Remember, the namespace should be escaped, so like this. I'm sorry, like this with two slashes. But not only this, we also need to add the class name. So now the namespace plus the class name looks fine. Let's check it out. We need to flush caches. So we need to cache flush because it's a static file. It's always generating. It's like generating the whole schema. So let's see, will it work? The cache has been flushed. Let's now try to request the server time using our editor. It should return 1 to 3. And as we can see, the server time returned us 1 to 3, which is amazing. And because I was playing while we were waiting, I changed this to the date in the format of year, month, and date. Now, if I save this, we should now get the real date. Very cool. What if we want to have a minute? Well, you also can do it. It's a matter of changing this function format. But overall, here is how you can create the resolvers. Notice, just once again, we are creating a schema. In this schema, we are referencing a resolver for our field. In this field, we are referencing the resolver itself, like server time. Interesting. And from this resolver, we can return the data. Let me give you some best practices for you to remember when writing the resolvers so they can always perform fast. Let's see here. The GraphQL, we knew what it is. Very good. What about the best practices? Well, the first one is, I would say, first, always try to resolve from parent field. So if you have a product and you add a new field to this, like for example reviews, those reviews must be resolved in the product, so on the level of all products instead of for each product. Because if you add a field like product and here you add review, if you do it like this and you add the resolver here, then when the reality comes and you have a request for 20 products, you will 20 times call your resolver. So instead, try to extend or plug in into the original resolver for a product. So if it had a resolver at some point, you need to plug into it So instead of your field, so try to find a field where product is declared as a field and add and extend or plugin into its resolver. You can see this in action in the which is a wrong color marker, in the ScandiPWA/performance. So this package is very powerful and interesting because it optimizes the performance of Magento's GraphQL really in depth, and it allows you to resolve catalog information much faster because it moves the reviews, it moves the media data, attribute data out of Magento resolvers and puts them into out of the field resolvers and put them into the product resolvers. And same goes for categories, for everything. So fields must be resolved in the correct place. So above. It's like doing the fetch to the database in for each. Very bad approach. So the first one, it's called request from parent / from data source. And if you're writing a resolver, first please read about this package. Go to the GitHub page of it. Let's go together. Let's just see how it should be. So if we go to GitHub ScandiPWA and we search for performance on this page, we will find out that there is a package which has no stars but is a heart of ScandiPWA performance. It has it adds and introduces 3 processors: the composite collection processor, which is used by Magento already, the data post processor, and the collection post processor. So if you read out through it, you will understand how it implements it. So basically the collection post processor allows you to post process the collection, adding some information to it by field data. The data post processor allows you to post process the loaded product information data, and the product data provider is so you will read it and you will be ready to fight with a GraphQL resolvers. So with that, I'm happy to say that you are ready to start writing your first GraphQL resolvers, and in the next workshop in this series, we will take a look on how you can connect the ScandiPWA with your custom resolver. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day. Bye.